In the summer of 2015, my best friend Alex and I decided to embark on a thrilling adventure by renting a secluded cabin tucked away in the heart of a dense and mysterious forest. The idea of cozy escape from reality enticed us, and we couldn't wait to catch up and enjoy some much-needed relaxation. As we approached the cabin, a foreboding aurora hung in the air. The tall trees seemed to whisper ancient secrets, and the darkness of the forest cast an eerie shadow that sent shivers down our spines. Still, we were undeterred and excited to make the most of our time together. Upon stepping inside the cabin, we were immediately met with a chilling sight. Dirty footprints scattered across the floor as if someone had been wandering about with malevolent intent. Our initial excitement waned, but we tried to brush off as mere coincidence, hoping that our weekend wouldn't be tainted by fear. Our first day was filled with laughter and adventure as we explored the enigmatic woods surrounding the cabin. But as the sun set, a sense of unease settled upon us like a heavy fog. Michael claimed that he saw a figure lurking in the shadows, but I reassured him that it was probably just a trick of the imagination. However, when we returned to the cabin, my heart pounded with fear. More footprints, fresh and deliberate, now surrounded our belongings. It was as if an unseen presence had been watching us, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That night, as we lay in our beds, the sound of soft, slow footsteps echoed outside our bedroom door. The darkness outside seemed to hold an evil presence, and our nerves were on edge. Michael whispered my name, his voice trembling with fear. "We are not alone," he whispered, his eyes wide with terror. I nodded, unable to find my voice. We huddled together, trying to muster the courage to confront whatever horror lurked just beyond that door. Then, in the darkness, we heard a sinister laugh, a bone-chilling sound that sent shivers down our spines. Our hearts pounded, and the beads of cold sweat formed on our foreheads. The cabin's walls seemed to close in on us as the malevolent laughter grew louder, echoing through the night. With our adrenaline pumping, we pushed the furniture against the door, trying to keep the unknown intruder at bay. Sleep was impossible, and we remained wide awake, our ears strained to catch any sound that might betray the intruder's movements. Morning finally came, and with the first light of day, we fled the cabin, leaving behind the horrors of the night. As we drove away, a feeling of dread lingered, and we couldn't shake the feeling that something malevolent still watched us from the darkness of the woods. We never spoke of that night to anyone, fearing that no one would believe our terrifying ordeal. The memory of that weekend haunts us to this day, a chilling reminder that evil can lurk in the most unsuspecting places, waiting to strike when we least expect it. In the heart of Oregon's eerie wilderness, I embarked on a solo journey, craving solace in nature's embrace. The city I arrived in was a ghost town, deserted and desolate. The Airbnb I booked was a cabin in the woods, hidden from the world with a foreboding air around it. The moment I stepped inside, a chill crawled up my spine. The walls seemed to whisper ancient secrets, and the silence was deafening. The musty smell of decay lingered in the air, suffocating me with its oppressive weight. I shivered and tried to brush off the unease that crept into my mind. As the night descended, the cabin took on a life of its own. Shadows danced on the walls, forming grotesque shapes that sent my heart racing. Strange sound echoed from the woods outside, like mournful cries of creatures unseen. I huddled in my bed, pulling the covers tight around me, trying to ward off the terror that threatened to engulf me. In the pale moonlight, I caught a glimpse of a figure standing at the window. Its eyes glowed like embers in the darkness, staring at me with an inscrutable gaze. My breath hitched and I dared not move, paralyzed by fear. The next morning, I decided to go for a hike to clear my mind, but the woods seemed to have a life of their own. Their trees twisted and contorted, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, beckoning me to enter their haunting realm. The rustling leaves whispered malevolent secrets, warning me to leave. Back at the cabin, I felt a presence lurking in the shadows. The air felt thick with malevolence, and the room seemed to close in on me. I could almost hear the walls creaking with unseen forces, as if the cabin itself was alive with dark intentions. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard footsteps outside. They were slow, deliberate, drawing closer to the cabin. My heart pounded in my chest, and a cold sweat broke out on my brow. The figure appeared at the window again, its face obscured by darkness. It watched me with an unnerving stillness, sending chills down my spine. Fueled by fear, I gathered my belongings and fled the cabin, not daring to look back. As I drove away, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders, but the sense of dread lingered in my mind. Even now, safe at home, I can't shake the feeling that something malevolent lurked in those woods. The memory of a haunting cabin and the figure at the window haunts my dreams, a constant reminder of the horrors that can lie hidden in the most peaceful of places. Last year, I found myself on a business trip, yearning for peace away from airports and planes. I despise cramped spaces and the chaos of flying, so I decided to take the scenic route and drive. I rented 2 Airbnb cabins, one for the journey there and one for the return. The first cabin was uneventful, a cozy retreat nestled in nature's embrace. But the second one, that's where the horror began. Late in the evening, I arrived at the Airbnb, wearied from a long day of traveling. As I walked around the house, a feeling of unease crept up my spine. The decor was unsettling, draped in old-fashioned dark wood furniture and heavy curtains that seemed to harbor secrets in their folds. The air was suffocating, carrying the pungent scent of cigarette smoke as if trapped for years. Glancing back at the online pictures, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the same house. The layout was different, and the furniture seemed to belong to a different era. But I was tired, too tired to fuss about it. I reasoned that it must be an oversight or a simple mistake. I tossed my traveling bags against the wall and decided to take a quick shower before calling it a night. As the warm water cascaded over me, an unsettling silence settled over the cabin, like a veil of shadows descending upon its walls. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by a loud noise that shattered the stillness. It sounded like something had fallen in the hallway. My heart raced, pounding in my ears like a war drum. But when I strained to listen, there was no other sound to accompany it, only the eerie echo of my own breath. Try as I might, I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something was amiss. My mind refused to let me go back to sleep without first checking the house. It was a decision that would forever haunt me. Stepping into the hallway, I found it empty, devoid of any signs of disturbance. The rooms were as if they were when I first arrived, serene and undisturbed. I sighed, chiding myself for being so paranoid, and made my way back to my bedroom. But as I entered, I caught a fleeting glimpse of a movement in the bathroom. My heart stopped, and I felt a shiver crawl down my spine. Out of the darkness stepped a figure, tall and emaciated, with a wild, feral look in his eyes. "Wallet," he said firmly, his voice devoid of any warmth. My hands trembled as I pointed to my bag against the wall. In it lay my wallet, my money, my identity. But what drew my eyes more was the kitchen knife he had held tightly in his hand, like a talon ready to strike. He slung the bag around his shoulder, tightening his grip on the knife, and commanded me to move into the hallway. As I stepped back, I caught a sight of another man standing at the end of the hallway. His features mirrored the first, hunger in his eyes, like wolves waiting to pounce on their prey. Fear gripped my throat, and I mustered the courage to speak, my voice barely a whisper. "Please, just let me go." But then, as if distracted, the man in the hallway turned his head and glanced at something around the corner. It was a fleeting moment, but it was enough. My instincts kicked in, and I saw my chance. I sprinted for the front door, adrenaline pumping through my veins. The night air was cold and biting, but I didn't dare look back. I ran as if my life depended on it, and in that moment, it truly did. I made it to a nearby gas station and dialed 911 frantically, explaining what had happened. The police came quickly, but by the time they arrived, the men were long gone, swallowed by the shadows. The police hinted at the area's dark history, revealing that robberies and attacks were tragically common in that neighborhood. I was a mere victim of circumstance, a hapless traveler who unknowingly stumbled upon danger. Even in the light of day, the neighborhood looked eerie, like a haunted canvas that hid its secrets well. I couldn't believe that I had unknowingly booked an Airbnb in such a treacherous place. But what terrified me the most, what haunted my dreams and kept me awake at night, was the sound of multiple footsteps that chased me as I fled for my life. In the depths of that ominous cabin, I encountered a malevolence that I couldn't comprehend, a darkness that lingers in the deepest recesses of my soul.